Salutations! There's a puzzle game I've been working on and off for the past couple years now. Today I'd like you to meet it. Yeah, right now it's nothing flashy, but don't let the admittedly very Spartan programmer art deceive you. Most of the progress I've made lies beneath the surface. So shall we dive in? So picture yourself in the shoes of our pixelated protagonist for a moment. You want to grab that money bag, but there's a conspicuously blue door blocking the way. On the floor nearby is a button of a suspiciously similar shade, next to a remarkably pushable looking box. The solution seems obvious, so we... Oh no, you accidentally pushed the box in the wrong direction! How are you going to get it out now? Hey, don't panic. Just press the undo button until the box is back where it started. Awesome. Now we can proceed as if nothing happened, if only that worked in real life. Anyways, how did we do that? In the year of our Lord 2025, a puzzle game with an undo feature is about as remarkable as wearing shoes on your feet. So how am I making such a big deal about this? Well, it's not as trivial as you might think. Consider that the game always needs to know what the puzzle looks like. It keeps track of where the player is, where the boxes are, how much money you've collected, etc. So how about we keep track of all these past puzzle states, and whenever the player presses undo, we revert back to the previous one. While that would work, and I have no doubt there are good puzzle games that take this approach, it's a pretty inefficient brute force solution. I mean, come on, do we really need to record the entire state of the puzzle for every move in a game where each move you make only changes a couple of things? Consider this move. All that happens here is that the player moves up. This move would be pretty simple to undo, right? Just keep track of what direction we moved, and then when we press undo, move the character back in the opposite direction. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now how about this move? The player moves to the right, pushing this box in the process. So when we move the player, let's also keep track of whether we pushed a box, and in what direction. Then when we undo the move, we just move the box as well. But then what if we want to move multiple boxes in a single move? What if the player picks up a money bag, or both at the same time? Now what if we add more actions the player can take that affect the puzzle in their own ways, potentially including all the previous ones? Well, clearly we need a more flexible way to describe how the actions the player takes can affect the different parts of the puzzle. Let's break down this move, where the player pushes a box to the right. There's a problem with this description of the move. Saying the player pushes the box implies that this move is an action by the player causing a reaction on the box. Sure, logically that might be what's happening, but describing the moves our player can make like this means we also have to describe how these actions happen in reverse if we want to undo them. This leaves the door open for bugs to arise if we accidentally describe a reaction and its inverse differently, where undoing an action might leave the puzzle in a different state than where it started. Instead, let's think about each individual part of the puzzle. After making this move, the player moves one space to the right, and the box moves one space to the right. By describing it this way, the way to undo this move becomes obvious. We just take the player and the box and put them back. We're pushing multiple boxes? Just keep track of how each one moved and then put them back. The player picks up a money bag? Let's just describe this as the bag disappearing and the player's score going up by 1. Then, if we undo this move, we can just make the bag come back and subtract 1 from our poor little guy's wallet. Now we can describe each move by the individual consequences it has on each part of the puzzle, and undo each independently without having to worry about why any of these changes happened. We didn't even have to worry about the order either. If we undo the box's movement first, then sure, the box might be on top of the player for a moment, but immediately after we'll undo the player's movement and the puzzle will never end up in an invalid state. But then, what does it mean for the puzzle to be in a valid state? Let's start over. Think for a moment. Why can't you just walk through the door and grab the money? What's stopping you? Burn the establishment! Everything you once believed is an illusion! Well, not really. Initially, the approach I took to move legality was closely tied to the move logic itself. For example, if you tried walking into a closed door, the game would check if there was anything there that would block your move, and if so, it would forbid the move and nothing would happen. But again, the system's flaws start to show once more unique interactions enter the picture. Let's say, for instance, we push a box off of a button into a door that's being held open by that button. Technically, when we execute this move, the door is open, but since the player isn't heavy enough to push the button down, at the end of the day, we have a closed door on a box occupying the same space. Obviously not good. The main issue here is that at some point, the game has to check all the buttons in the puzzle and see if any doors should open or close when the player makes a move. But if a move's behavior is dependent on the status of the puzzle's doors and buttons, we end up in a weird chicken and egg scenario where we need to know if a door is open to see if a move is legal, but then the move itself can open or close the doors. Again, not ideal. Let's take a step back and try and figure out how we think these moves should work. If we push a box off a button and into a closing door, this move shouldn't be legal because it ends up with a box clipping into a closed door. On the other hand, if pushing the box off the button and into the door would open it, then this move would be legal because the door ends up open and isn't obstructing the box at all. I keep using those two words, ends up. Maybe that's the key here. How about we do burn the establishment, and any move the player makes, we do allow, no matter what state he puts the puzzle in. Then, since we know exactly what the result of the player's actions would be, if it results in something invalid, like two solid objects intersecting, we take a literal step back using that undo system we put so much thought into. Law and order, successfully maintained. So, looking back, we've now divided our game into a lot of neat, mostly independent parts. We have a section that describes how moves work, which then creates a list of changes to the puzzle that the legality checker can validate, or that the player can undo at their own behest. Because these systems don't care that much about how each other work, I have a lot of flexibility when it comes to what kind of interactions I can add to the game. And while I've kept a lot about this game under wraps in this video, I have some very interesting plans with these systems. Now, I have to be honest with you guys for a second. While this devlog was fun to make, don't expect these to happen often. I'm a one-man team, and while game development is fun, the wacky devlogs you see on YouTube only show you the 10% of the process that's entertaining. The other 90% is plain, boring, honest hard work. I'd rather spend my time polishing the 90% to a sheen than turning that 10% into content, and in doing so risk creatively backing myself into a corner. Thank you for watching, and if you're grinding away at your own project's 90%, Godspeed to you too.